Hey everybody, it's Galmadex, and welcome to my very first premiere draft of Aetherdrift on my personal account. We of course did a ton during the early access events, so hopefully we have some decent experience with the format, but still have a lot to learn these coming weeks leading up to, of course, the Arena Direct and upcoming Arena Opens and stuff, so still pretty new to the format, but excited to hop in. So without further ado, let's get into the pack one pick one here. We have some really sweet uncommons. I'm not so sure about the rare. If you can build a cycling deck around this, it could be pretty powerful, but cycling is primarily in blue and red, so you have to play some weird blue-black or black-red hybrid deck. Now, it might still be worth it, but without much experience in the format, I would prefer to just take a card that's just great up front no matter what deck we put it in, like an Otark Mammoth here, just a giant way to stabilize with two creatures off of the one spell in the late game, or one of the blue spells is also really good. Stock up, digs for whatever you need out of the top five. It gets you two cards for 3 mana, so it's like a divination, but you get to choose your best cards in the top five, so I think that card's actually really good. And the other blue uncommon, the bounce plus draw card, that kind of effect always plays very well. For pick two now, we do have a Stampeding Scurryfoot to keep this draft really simple for now. Just another one of these creatures that can spit out two creatures off of the one spell, which is always nice. This one is particularly efficient because it's pretty easy to have a point between turn 1 and turn 3 where you have an extra green mana sitting there not doing anything anyway. So it plays a little more like a 4 mana 3/3 and a 2/2 than a 5 mana 3/3 and a 2/2. Obviously, if you draw it late in the game, you have to pay your 1 mana and the 4 all in one turn. But early game, again, it's really easy to just have like a 2 mana spell on turn 3, so you can go 2 mana spell plus the Scurryfoot, or just not have another 1-drop in your opening hand where you can play that on turn 1. Pretty easy to get the 3/3 and the 2/2 out on turn 4, where that plays super, super well. For pick three, the green card here is now actually pretty weak. Locks it on Surveyor's just fine. 3 mana, 3/3, it starts your engines. It's super, super filler. If you make it to max speed, you can draw a card, exiling it from your grave, but that is not the most exciting pick. We could take a Crash and Burn here for the best removal spell in the pack that pushes us towards green-red, or we can try to go for like the green-white mounts and vehicles deck. Weirdly enough, despite this literally being a set all about racing, all about vehicles, all about mounts, I just haven't been impressed by any of the mount and vehicle synergies at all. I think that what I've seen doing the most work has been just generically good cards, and some of the start your engines max speed stuff has also been pretty decent, some graveyard synergies, but really have not seen like mounts and vehicles and stuff pop off. So I'm just gonna take a generically good card here and grab a Crash and Burn for a great removal spell there. Pick four, we see another Stampeding Scurryfoot. Again, I think this card is deceptively good. I think it's one of green's best commons, just making that wide board state off of one spell. It looks really, really innocuous, but it's actually quite a solid card, and I think probably one of the strongest in the pack, if not the strongest. So we'll take another Stampeding Scurryfoot. Pick five, not a whole ton going on. There's two pretty solid commons. Venom Saklagak is a fine little death toucher that's always relevant because it has that death touch. Then the Nimble Thopterist is pretty good, giving you, again, two creatures off the one spell. Big fan of that kind of stuff, but I think we are really heavy towards green now with three excellent green cards. So I'm just going to take a card that we can kind of guarantee makes the cut. It's Venom Saklagak, I would say, is not quite as good as like Scurryfoots and the Mammoth or anything like that, but it's on the good end of filler. It's the kind of filler that we're very rarely going to cut. Pick six, now we do have another really, really good spell. Here, the Migrating Ketrodon is a great way to stabilize. It's a gigantic body, it has reach to block flyers, and it gains a bunch of life when it hits the board, and if that weren't enough, they gave it cycling too. So if you're stuck on mana and you need to hit something where you're going to die immediately, you can cycle this away trying to find that cheaper spell in the early game. So Ketrodon is just an absolute banger, and I'm really happy to take it here. For pick seven, we have some tremendously filler red creatures, or we can just take an off-color removal spell because we only have one red spell right now anyway. So this leaves us open to being green-red or green-white. Either direction should be fine, so I'll take the Ride's End here. Pick eight, the creatures are pretty filler again. Unless you really care about reaching max speed and starting your engines often, I don't think Catalyzer's the greatest because of its low toughness, but obviously if you do care about that synergy, it goes up a lot in value. I think I'd rather just speculate on a Jungle Hollow here, honestly. maybe Trip Up as sort of a blue removal spell. Then we've got a removal spell in 3 different directions, but I think just Speculative Fixing looks fine there. Pick 9, another mediocre pack. I'm probably just going to take the Gibberick Omnivore. Not an insane card by any means. 2 mana 3/2, certainly pretty filler, but again, it's that better end of filler. It probably doesn't get cut, and we're definitely playing green here, overtaking a somewhat more fiddly black removal spell. 5 mana is a little bit high, especially when black does have like 3 mana and 1 mana removal spells like the Bauble and the I forget what the other one's called, but it's basically murder. 3 mana, destroy a creature or a vehicle. Pick 10, now we're taking stuff that's highly unlikely to make the cut. But just some random filler in case we end up in these colors and we need more random filler. And we'll see what we get in pack number 3. Since we're pretty open here, any mono-colored off-color rare we could just shove in here and start going that direction. This is a 2-color rare, so probably not. Exile an artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step and deal 4 to each creature. So it's a pseudo board wipe. It doesn't kill all of the biggest creatures, but it does save your best creature that would die to that 4 damage. You can exile that to make sure it sticks around. It's pretty good, but I just don't think that the mana fixing is great in this format towards trying to do 3-color splashy sort of decks, so I really don't want to immediately hop into 3-color playing all the green, red, and white here. I'd rather just stick to heavy green and take another great card like Stampeding Scurryfoot here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Pack 2, pick 2 might have finally gotten me to commit to a second color because I think Ranger's Aether Hive is actually very, very good with a bunch of exhaust abilities, and we have 3 Stampeding Scurryfoots. All of those have an exhaust ability that also curves well with this. We want to get a Scurryfoot down within the first 2 turns. Then on turn 3, we can spend 3 on the Aether Hive, and turn 4, we can spend that 4 mana to activate the Scurryfoot, make a 3/3 and a 1/1 Thopter with flying. So that seems really good. It's also really cheap to crew, so as long as you activate an exhaust ability 1 time while this is on your board, you're gonna have the Thopter that you need to keep crewing the 3/5 Vigilant Body. So I think green-blue exhaust could be an interesting and powerful direction to go here. So I'm going to try to lock in on that to where we get to take the Roadside Blowout now, which we were talking about in Pack 1 as one of the best cards in our Pack 1 pick 1 even. Just a solid tempo play, slowing your opponent down and still drawing you a card so you're not down a card at all. Pick 4 now, the Skystreak Engineer is another card that's going to play really well with the Aether Hive card. One issue that we are going to have in green-blue is that that's not a great color pair for having a lot of removal. So it is a little rough to pass up on the Crash and Burn and now pass a Lightning Strike here, where maybe just, again, a less synergistic, more generically good green-red deck would be better in the long run. But I think it's going to be fun trying out this exhaust archetype, seeing exactly how much we can get going with it. So I'm going to stick to my guns here and take the Skystreak Engineer. But I wouldn't be surprised if green-red having the Crash and Burn and the Lightning Strike just ends up being a better deck in the long run. Pick 5 here, as I was saying before, we have like no removal, so we really need to spend picks on that. Every single card we've taken so far is a creature, so definitely some non-creature spells, preferably removal spells, and Flood the Engine is a fine little removal spell. I'm not the biggest fan of it because this is a format where artifact and enchantment removal is main deckable because there's so many artifacts primarily, but that does mean people are going to randomly have Broken Wings to blow up your Flood the Engine, which is rough, but it's still worth it when we've got like no other removal spells right now. Here's an easy Hazard of the Dunes, just beefy green monster. Come on in. Pick 7. I think these cards are all pretty mediocre. Just take something for curve purposes. I guess probably the 3-drop creature. Loxodon Surveyor here. Pick 8. Looks like nothing for us out of this pack. Yeah, I'm definitely not playing a Gear Seeker Serpent in this deck. We are not going to have a lot of artifacts. Go ahead and take Sundial, I guess. Just the strongest card. Go ahead and mute my phone here for the recording session, my bad. Pick 9. I mean, this can technically activate exhaust abilities, but 2-mana 2/1s are usually just so bad unless they have a really good ability, and this is only activating exhaust abilities for us because we only have like one artifact in the deck, so I don't know. It's probably better than Wild Roads. We're not going to have a lot of vehicles and stuff for that to enter untapped with. Pick 10. Probably another Jungle Hollow randomly. Maybe Silken Strength is actually fine. I'll actually take that here. I feel pretty locked in towards the green-blue deck, and again, we have a massively high creature count, so even if it's a somewhat mediocre combat trick, just adding to the variety of spells we can cast is going to be helpful, so that it's not just mountains of creatures all the time. We might have to take Scrap Compactor here. Very, very filler removal, but when we have like no other removal, it could definitely be a necessary evil here. Pack 3, pick 1. Another Ranger's Ether Hive. I'm really excited about that. I want to take it here. I don't think that it'll wheel. The issue is that we have another really good rare. So the Thopter Fabricator, a 4/4 flyer that crews 2, isn't the greatest. What makes this really powerful is the ability. Whenever you draw a second card each turn, you get a 1/1 flyer. So in a deck with a lot of cycling cards, that's really easy to consistently activate, or just a lot of card draw in general. As much as I want to take that here, we really don't have anything to go with it yet. So we would have to hope to pick up a bunch of cycling and draw spells from this point onward. Yeah, that is awkward. I don't know how this Roadside Blowout ended up in the sideboard. That was a mistake. Technically, I've got one card to go with Fabricator, but I just don't think that's enough. So I'm going to take the Ether Hive there. Pack 3, pick 2. Elvish Refueler is kind of perfect for this archetype, but we're also, again, insanely low on removal, where the Flood the Engine is going to be really helpful. And a 3-mana 5/4 is just absolutely massive. This is some fierce competition. There's even a Ketradon, a Pothole Mole. This is an incredible pack. Go ahead and look at the deck here. We've got one Flood the Engine, one Scrap Compactor, one Roadside Blowout, and one Silken Strength for non-creature cards. I've got double Ether Hive already. Don't really need that extra synergy, probably. I'm gonna take another Flood the Engine here. Again, it's certainly weaker than those other two cards on average, I would say. At least weaker than the 3-mana 5/4, but it just seems genuinely great for this deck, genuinely quite important. Here's an interesting pick. We have Nimble Thopterist at 4 mana, so we're going to cast that more consistently. We'll cast that more often on average, and it's pretty good. But there's also the Ketradon, which is incredible at stabilizing, plus cycles when we can't cast it. And we have to consider that our mana curve, while it looks like we have very few 4-drops, we have 3 Scurryfoots to be activating on turn 4. So we actually have 4 things to do with our 4 mana there, so we don't really need more 4-drops. I think I'm pretty happy to just take another Ketradon and try to go big here at the top of our curve. I think our deck's pretty good at cluttering up the board, spitting out some tokens and stuff, and making sure that we survive to the long game to where we can flip the game in our favor with these huge creatures like the Mammoths and the Ketradons. So pretty happy with that. Pick 4, another Skystreak Engineer's fine. If nothing else, I can run that over the Guidelight Optimizer. Might be more interested in the Pothole Mole. I mean, we don't have any graveyard synergies, but this is still like a 3-mana 2/3 draw land, which is a pretty solid deal. I don't know. I'm low on great 2-drops because I'm running a Guidelight Optimizer right now, and even if I run it, I still only have 5 after taking the Skystreak Engineer, so I think I'll go for another 2-drop there. But again, that mole is certainly an option. For pick 5, Bestow Greatness, pretty expensive combat trick, or Bounce Off is a fine tempo play. Night Market makes sure we have a land we can cycle in the late game to not get flooded out, but the fixing part isn't that important in a 2-color deck. It's really just Bounce Off or Night Market here. I do like cycling lands in general. I'll go for the Night Market. I think that's fine. Pick 6 now. There's Thornwood Falls. Sure. Thornwood Falls seems fine. I think Aether Siphon has seemed okay. I've had some opponents play this against me, and it's always seemed fine. They've been somewhat stable and started drawing the cards, but again, the fact that it doesn't impact the board at all is a little bit concerning. You got to be in the right position. Dredger's Insight also has been pretty impressive. It's a good little 2-mana draw spell that ends up gaining you like a decent amount of life throughout the game, because there's a lot of cards like Pothole Mole and stuff, even in mono green, that are manipulating your graveyard and triggering that card. Okay, pick 7. I don't think I'm playing any of this, but I guess maybe Bestow Greatness. Definitely not Point the Way. Yeah, just take a Bestow Greatness. I think I'm starting that in the sideboard if I can. I mean, I guess I do need a couple more playables here since a couple of these cards are lands, so we'll play Bestow Greatness for now. Yeah, that's true. I still need one more playable to run a 17 land deck, which is probably where we're at. Just start rare drafting here. If you're ever into the interest of rare drafting and you own like a lot of cards from the set, if you hold down the Alt key on PC, that's how you can check exactly how many you own of everything. So as you can see, very, very new to the format. I've played 2 sealeds, and that's it on my personal account. So most of these cards, I just don't really own that many. I guess I'm running double Bestow Greatness. That seems pretty awkward. Wow. Okay, I guess I'm not. We have a Pothole Mole or a Migrating Ketrodon here. Incredible choices out of pick 10. I'm just going to run another Ketrodon. I know it makes the deck pretty slow, but again, I feel like we're pretty good at clumping up that early board, and Ketrodon is such a big way to flip a game around. So I have no foul roads yet. There's a Jaguar I'm not going to play. I could play a Bounce Off. I would rather play a Bounce Off than a second Bestow Greatness for sure. Actually, I might just cut all the Bestow Greatnesses because we're at 24 non-land cards now for a 16 land deck, but I've got, you know, all the beefy 6 drops I would be happy to consistently hit. So I feel like I can cut Bestow Greatness here. Even the Scrap Compactor is like a 6-mana removal spell. Hazard of the Dunes has a 7-mana exhaust ability. Alright, so here we have a look at the final deck list for today. This looks like a pretty decent one. We don't really have any bomb power in this deck, which is always an issue in the modern era of Limited. There's plenty of bomb rares to go around in the Play Booster era, so you're always going to be a little bit behind when you don't have some kind of like great rare in the deck. So that starts us off a little behind right there. But we have really good synergy where we're turning some of these uncommons into pretty scary cards, like the Ether Hive here with the amount of exhaust abilities in this deck, between the triple Scurryfoot, double Skystreak Engineer, Hazard of the Dunes, all that good stuff. But we also have some nombos, some non-synergy that detracts from the deck a little bit, pulling it back down to a really average build where we have just some random start your engines cards that aren't particularly good, like Glitch Ghost Surveyor and Loxodon Surveyor. They're not really doing anything specific for the deck. They're just kind of chilling, filling out the deck list. As with some of our non-creature spells, Scrap Compactor and Silken Strength over just like maybe some better removal spells had we locked in and found our color pair a little earlier. So definitely lacking a little bit in card quality where we've got some pretty below average filler in here, like a few below average filler spells, as well as no really high quality card, like a bomb rare. But it still looks like a really decent deck with a solid, consistent curve and consistent game plan of just cluttering up the board with some tokens and just a bunch of creatures into slamming down good 6-drops, or again, just kind of popping off with a bunch of exhaust synergy. So I think it's still got a lot of play to it and could get decently far. So I'm excited to see just how far this deck can make it. So without further ado, let's hop into the gameplay and see how it does. All right, here we are on the play for game 1. Always great to be on the play, especially with this hand. If we can draw any land in our deck, then we get to drop Loxodon Surveyor turn 3 to start our engines and immediately be at speed number 2, thanks to Skystreak Engineer poking our opponent. And there we go, right on time. It kept us waiting. Decided to make it stressful there. It was not our first draw of the game, but the land did show up right on time. So we're at speed 2. Our opponent goes for a turn 3 Packed Dull Terror, which is pretty good. We can threaten to Silken Strength it here, and if they don't block at all, we can just Roadside Blowout, draw the card. I will happily Silken Strength here. We've got a really great curve for that, because I get to hold up Bounce Off and bounce whatever they play next turn back into their hand, and still get that tempo swing here, while killing the Packed Dull Terror. Possession Engine. Yep, return a creature or vehicle. So we'll bounce that. They will be able to just recast it again next turn, but we'll get a big swing in. They will basically skip their next turn, just replaying that. Okay. Tap land is awkward for the 4-drop. That would have been our best play this turn. But we hit them down to 14. We're at maximum speed. I have the roadside blowout to cast on the engine as well. So we'll just play the 2-1 optimizer. Cool. Looks like they haven't hit a land either. So they will remain tapped out here. I guess because we just be getting the Surveyor back tapped right now, and they already don't have any blocks, it might be better to just get the Hazard out and then blow out next turn. Makes sense to me. Now, no matter when we roadside blowout, we'll be getting a tapped Lockset on Surveyor because they can just crew the Possession engine in response. So there is that to consider, but it's really just the fact that they couldn't crew the engine on blocks this turn anyway. Like, I could already get my 3 damage in for the turn. That's like, well, just playing a 4-4 Hazard of the Dunes is pretty equivalent to getting back my 4-5 Surveyor. The 0-8 Coral Tyrant is going to be pretty annoying. I think we're kind of locked in on the flying game plan now with Skystreak Engineer. Thankfully, though, thanks to its exhaust ability, that can get really big, as can Hazard of the Dunes, but it can't get to more than 7 powers, so I still can't attack through the 0-8 body, even if I dump all my mana into the Hazard, which is awkward. So we're just going to level up the Skystreak Engineer and start getting that in. Got them down to 8. They've got the spin out for the engineer, and now we have big issues here. Migrating Ketrodon kind of immediately solves those issues. It's not going to really hit them here again, but make sure that we have a stable board. I suppose we technically already did, because I could exhaust the Hazard of the Dunes and have the 7/7 blocker up. I don't know what arena sound effect is going on that's constantly doing the really loud noise at the start of their turn, but it's pretty annoying. Spike Shell Harrier. That gets me off max speed. I guess it's a bunch of max speed sounds that are really loud here. Pretty annoying. But yeah, this is awkward because I feel like we got to a really good start this game, but our opponent has tons of gas left here, which means they're really stable, and we're just going to be staring at each other in a top deck war now. Somebody's got to find a way to break through this. You know, I guess I could roadside blow out my own Lockset on Surveyor. The Silken thing falls off, but they don't have it anymore. Maybe I should have just done that on an earlier turn. I probably should have. I didn't even realize I could just bounce off my own creature there. Oh, this is rough, because the Pact Altair is going to be so ridiculous for stabilizing our opponent. Just keep gaining life here, keep draining life from me. Yeah, I mean, we just don't have attacks still. None of our creatures have a really good enter effect to try to bounce our own creature right now for value. Oh boy, now they just have an unblockable attacker every turn for 5 a turn. There we go. Scrap compacting the Possession engine is solid, then we're going to have a 4-5 reach back on our board. Getting us towards a position where we get to actually attack in with a bunch of stuff. Oh my god. They top deck a second Gear Seeker Serpent. Yikes, dude. Alright. To blow that up at this point because they have two of them. I mean, they can still only attack with one a turn, but now even if I roadside blow out one of them, the other one's going to poke me. This way I can buy another turn with a roadside blowout. I don't have the mana for an exhaust ability this turn anyway, so let's bounce the Serpent, draw a card. Okay. Skystreak Engineer's legit. Unfortunately, it's not castable right now. Another artifact for the life drain, raising their speed. Another mana for us. Not the complete end of the world, because it does get us to activate the more expensive ability right now. And every time we do one, we're getting a 1/1 Thopter in the sky, which is what's important here. It's not going to break through a Wicker Folk, but if we find something to get through the Wicker Folk, it'll speed up our clock. Five unblockable damage coming in. Pretty much guaranteed to die in 4 hits to that because they only need to play one more artifact to ping us for 1, to where, you know, 3 more hits of 5 is 15 damage here. Scurryfoot, it's another ability for the Aether Hive. I don't mind that. They don't have enough flying or reach toughness to stop Skystreak Engineer here. If I attack with Hazard and Ketradon, I kill something, but then their crackback is better, I think. Getting pretty close to attacking with some stuff on the ground, but I just don't think I'm there yet. Okay, probably next turn. I mean, I'll have a million chump blockers next turn. So now I can attack him with, like, Hazard and Ketradon. Maybe even saddle up the Lagak and get that in. Yep, we're going down to 11. So 2 swings till death. Ketradon changes that a lot. Do I have the mana to Ketradon and... No, I don't have the mana to Ketradon and activate Scurryfoot. They only have a 1 toughness flyer up now, though, so I think it's better to activate Scurryfoot right now and just send the flyers in, because now I'm getting like another Thopter too, and the Thopters matter against a 1 toughness flyer. Ooh, Death Touch, indestructible. That is brutal. Because now they have a 3/2 flyer to block the 1/1 flyers. Wow, yeah, no, that's filthy here. That's better than them just drawing, like, destroy target creature, even. Yikes. It's tremendously not what we wanted to see. Alright, well now we need to find an out. I think I'm actually on Ketradon now, because we're not attacking past the unit. So what do we have left? What are our outs? We still have both of our copies of Flood the Engine. Those are our main outs here. But we also have a Glitch Ghost Surveyor. That'd be pretty decent. That's the main stuff. That's the stuff we really, really want. But it's possible with a sequence of decent draws, we can get there as well. Like a sequence including some Scurryfoots and Ketrodons and stuff, which we still have in the deck as well. That's probably pretty bad for me. Let's see what creature they have the most of. Makes all their vehicles +1/+1 if nothing else. But also whatever creature type they choose. Do they have any creatures that match? Toy, serpent, robot, human, robot, artificer. I don't have any artificers. Interesting. I was gonna say, I guess they have 2 robots technically. They wanted to buff the maximum amount of things. Wow, okay. That's really lucky for me. They did not see the reach there. That is so lucky for me. Alright, Ketrodon's not a bad draw. Yeah, getting rid of the flyer here is absolutely massive. Four blockers up. Block. This has defender, so block, 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 block. Yeah. This looks pretty good to me. Okay. Still pretty great. I'll take that. All right. They're down to 1. Packed Altair might change that a little bit. But I've got all these Flying Thopters. And they top deck a land. That is going to be a victory. In the end of this grindy game 1 here, it almost flew away from us. We had a great start, but our opponent stabilized quite well off of the Possession Engine and just some chunky creatures like Gearseeker Serpents and stuff. Pax Altair, kind of an MVP as well. But just a couple rough misplays during combat for our opponent, and some rough draws as well are going to pull us ahead in the end here. Stop the max amount of damage. Stop all 6 there. Death Touch the 4/4. Eat the 2/2. Eat the 2/1. Take 5. And that is game 1-0 heading into game 2. Here we are on the draw for game 2. I need to double check if I have more double blue or double green cards in this deck. Double green. I don't have anything that costs 2 blue. Okay. So, Night Market on green past the turn. I am playing a tap land turn 1 when I could get the Scrap Compactor down and get that 1 mana out of the way. But we have 2, 3, 4, 5 mana abilities in hand, so it's likely I'm going to need untapped sources every single turn for the rest of the game. So I'm just going to wait on getting the Scrap Compactor down and guarantee that I can curve out from this point on with untapped mana. Opponent starts by cycling a Skybox Fairy, which has some fun little combos. This card is really, really bad if you just run it up front, but there's some fun things you can do with it with reanimation spells, as well as there's like the Ready that can sack an artifact and bring it back, stuff like that. It's pretty fun. Opponent starts with Artillerist. Got the Aether Hive here, which would be fun, but I have nothing to exhaust yet. I don't have the mana to exhaust anything yet. So I don't mind just playing another Engineer, which I can play that and a Scurryfoot, or that and a Scrap Compactor. There's nothing to Scrap Compact anyway, so we'll play the Scurryfoot. If I did already play a Scurryfoot, I would be a little more interested in the Aether Hive. I could crew that with the Scurryfoot, and if I top deck a land, then I immediately have the mana for an exhaust ability to work with the Aether Hive. There's a Midnight Mangler. Well, we did top deck the land, but instead of exhausting a Scurryfoot, I can play the Scrap Compactor and the Aether Hive to set up for the long game, or I can just play a 4/4 trample here. I don't think that's going to be particularly good. They've got a 3/3 plus a 1/4 to block it, so it feels better to get the Aether Hive rolling. Unless they've got the counterspell here. There is a 1 and a blue counterspell, counters an artifact or a creature. Or if the Aether Hive doesn't die, this looks like a really good position to be in. We have 3 different exhaust abilities on the board. If I don't top deck a land, I just use Scurryfoot. If I do, I can exhaust whatever I want. And every time we're exhausting, we're getting another flyer. Blue-red is the cycling deck. It's the cycling archetype in this format. There's a lot of creatures there, and that you can get an uncommon that get a +1/+1 counter every time you cycle. That's one of the main game plans there, is to get one of those down. But our opponent right now only has the card that pings me every time they cycle, so they're not in the greatest position. The 3/4 flyer is a little bit of an issue. I might want to flood the engine on that. The second Aether Hive is kind of insane, though. If I have both of these down before I start exhausting, that would be filthy. So I might just skip the turn to play the Aether Hive here. Yeah, I'm just going to play another Aether Hive. It's a greedy line, but the value of 2 1/1 flyers every time we exhaust is pretty insane. So we're going to work towards that, and then I can just trump the Memory Guardian every turn and not really care about it. Save the Flood the Engine for something scarier later. We're down to 16. Four, 5 reach. Well, so much for our attacks here, but again, we are set up for a really good long game with both of our Aether Hives on board. That's the Marauding Mako you really got to worry about. We can flood its engine, flood the Shark engine, you know how it is, if it gets too big. And it is going to get a counter every single turn off of the Gunner. I might have to flood the Gunner here, because that's triggering both of the other cards every turn. Which is bad for me. Yeah, I guess I have to flood the Gunner. I'm actually really in the market for more mana right now, so I can do multiple things in one turn. But it is what it is. Yeah, I think if I draw land like every turn from now, I would not be unhappy. Because then I'm working my way towards the 6-mana Scrap Compactor, or potentially a turn where I get to activate a Scurryfoot and the 3-mana Scrap Compactor in the same turn for 7. Guide Light Optimizer. Okay, another Flood the Engine. Well, if I wasn't going to hit a land here, it's a solid one to hit. Attack with the Ether Hive here because we have the Scrap Compactor shoot something for 3 that we get to threaten. And if I don't have to do that, I'll have a million blockers up. Onboard tricks. Oh, let's go. Nom 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 nom. Pass turn. Down to 9. They're at 3 speed here. Maximum speed next turn. If we don't chump the Guardian, and if they don't activate Artillerist off of a cycle. Go for a bajillion blockers here. I think I'm mainly just here for the 3-5 on the 3-4 on blocks. But we have the backup Thopter blockers too. I mean, I suppose I would just block with the 3-5 and a 1-1. Trade a 1-1 up into the 3-4. Got them down to 9. It's 9 all here. They do have the bounce off for the engineer. Wow. That's pretty frustrating. Yeah, that's very incredible in this spot. I mean, they're down to just 1 creature. We're still winning. We're still winning, but all the Thopters that we made and both the Scurryfoots, pretty devastating. Plus it locks them in for max speed because now I don't have the flying blockers anymore. Man. Yeah, that was nasty. So they're playing completely off the top now. I feel in that instance, we flood the Guardian. They do get to draw 1 extra card off of the Raceway, right? If they miss on the first draw, they discard it and draw a new one. For 4 mana, because they have to tap Raceway and 3 more lands. Wow, they ditched the rare, the 3/3 Haster. Play Swiftwater Cliffs, sure. Goes to our turn. There's the Scurryfoot. But we are all in the sky right now. Still have a 3/5 blocker up thanks to the Scurryfoot, so we send in the team. Alright, 2 life. They've got 1 turn to get out of this. Alright, we're down to 4 off of the artillerist cycle. And they don't quite get there, but we were really close to dead there. A lightning strike, I guess, technically wouldn't quite do it, but insanely close to dead to something like lightning strike. So really, really scary game there. Very close one, but we are 2-0 heading into game 3. All right, here we are on the play for game 3. Maybe I shouldn't keep this hand because we don't have any creatures to play till like turn 6. So technically no proactive plays till then, but if we draw any of the cheap exhausters, like our triple Scurryfoot, our double flying exhauster, then this Aether Hive goes a really long way towards making a huge board. And now we drew a creature, so we've got an optimizer, if nothing else. That is the most mediocre creature in our deck, but it helps cast the Aether Hive, activate the compactor, activate the exhaust. It will be doing stuff. Playing against a blue-black deck, as we've seen before, that is a deck about making a huge board full of artifacts and like draining us for each artifact and stuff like that. So this one is, when it dies, draw a card for each +1/+1 counter on it. That is pretty dang good. I don't enjoy that. Like, even if I just scrap compact it immediately, it's pretty decent value. And if they just recast it later, it's going to be more counters, so I don't want to bounce it off either. I don't really know what we're supposed to do about that. I don't know. I should not have let Auto Tapper do the thing, because I wanted to play the Aether Hive and hold up bounce off there, but obviously the optimizer can't tap for the bounce off. That's awkward. Okay. Bunch of nonsense over there. They've got their own scrap compactor and a tortoise. He's all fine. They did get a treasure token from the tortoise, so they're going to be at 5 mana next turn to potentially blow up Hazard the Dunes. But they need 6 total for it, so... I feel like I might have to just blow this up before it has any more counters on it, right? I mean, we're just giving them a 2-for-1, but that's like the least that can be, so it feels worth it. It's only going to get worse for us if it sticks around. And this thing's Defender, so I'm not holding the optimizer back to crew Aether Hive on blocks. Pact All Terror. That card has been insanely good this format so far. Force the recast at least. Soak up some mana from our opponent. Roadside Blowout is a thing. Could crew Aether Hive with the Hazard and trade Optimizer into the Tortoise, but I don't think I want to. Tortoise just does not matter much as a blocker against the rest of our board right now, and Optimizer could matter for exhausting like Hazard of the Dunes if it sticks around. And if nothing else, it could draw the Scrap Compactor from our opponent if they don't get up to the 6 mana. But they made it up to the 6 mana with their land for turn this turn. Yeah, no, it is just impossible to stop your opponent from hitting max speed if they're a Pact All Terror deck. So this card, yeah, as I was saying, seems really good in this format. We're at 6 out of 7 mana. I can't exhaust the hazard before they can just blow it up next turn. Just gonna roadside blow out a Pact Doll Terror again. Make a double block hazard, I guess. I can't cast Catradon off of Optimizer. It's just highlighted because I can cycle it. So my only line here is to roadside blow out somebody. Yeah. Okay, that's the Catradon mana for next turn. The Aether Hive attack is bad. They double block and I only kill the Sarcophagus. But the hazard attack is fine. We get to kill both creatures off just the one card. Grim Bauble for the Optimizer. Alright. Well, tried our best to make up for the early 2-for-1 from our opponent's Market Back Walker with the 2-for-1 against Sarcophagus and Tortoise. But our opponent is very far ahead on board, and we have got to draw some action here. And when I say very far ahead on board, it might not look like it because I have a 6/6, but it's because they have on-board removal for the 6/6. So they have a guaranteed Pact Altair, Jesus. And even more removal. I should accrue to Aether Hive in response. We should be at 3 more life than we are. Just clicking too fast. Doesn't look like it'll matter at this rate, because our opponent is now very far ahead. The stock up picks up the best cards in their top 5, puts them both into their hand. The Aether Siphon draws another card every single turn and mills me too. The mill basically doesn't matter at all here. It's really just the card draw, getting our opponent ahead to where even if I draw pretty decently, we're not really going to be able to outperform somebody drawing 2 cards a turn. And I guess technically I might mill out before I die on board, but they're so far ahead in card advantage that we are losing either way. Yeah, no, I have like 20 cards left. I'm dying to the onboard damage first. Alright, you got me. Gearseeker Serpent can be unblockable. And that's 2-1 heading into game 4. Alright, here we are for game number 4. We're 2-1 right now. Got Scurryfoot into the Engineer, and for the top end of our curve, we just start exhausting all of these cards. This is a very solid opening hand. And let's get it going. Playing against a black deck. Golgari. There's Beast Rider Vanguard to stop the Scurryfoot on the ground. I could just bounce that off immediately, but it feels better to hold that off for something more expensive than just get 1 extra point of damage in with Scurryfoot. Cycle and Archfiend draw a card. If they have reanimation spells, that can be really scary. Reanimate that, get a big flyer. -2/-2, everybody. Okay, now I don't mind bouncing off too much now, but I'm just going to activate Scurryfoot anyway, and the trade is fine. I mean, it's more than fine. The trade is really good. Because they trade their entire card into something that still left a 3/3 behind. So we're up an entire 3/3 in the change. In the exchange, I should say. So I guess bounce off is probably happening like turn 6 at this rate. Well, never mind. That draw means this is a perfectly fine bounce off turn. I was going to be fine with the trade and just exhaust the Engineer, but since I can just run out this whole board for all that mana, that seems pretty good too. Cycle another Archfiend. Drop a land, play a Beast Rider Vanguard. Come on in, everybody. This could be wrong, but I'm going to activate Skystreak Engineer over playing and activating Scurryfoot. It's just more life total pressure immediately, putting them all the way down to just 2 life, and it plays a little better against a board wipe. If I run everything out and then they have some kind of board wipe here, that will be pretty devastating. But now, even if they have a board wipe, I can reestablish a board with the Scurryfoot. But that is not a good enough board wipe. Just reanimating an Archfiend does not stop lethal damage here. And that is 3-1 heading into game 5. All right, here we are on the play again for game number 5. This keep definitely has a little bit of risk to it, because we only have 2 lands and there's a 6-drop in the hand, but everything else is 3 mana or less. Technically, the Scurryfoots are more like 4 drops, so we do really want to hit 2 lands throughout this game, but if I can hit just 1, I can cast a Roadside Blowout, which draws me another card, helping dig a little farther towards the 4th land, and if we make it to that 4th land, we should be in a really stable position. Because we have all the exhaust abilities on the Scurryfoots, so I'm just going to work towards that here. Just go for even amounts of green and blue here. Playing against another Golgari deck. Pretty popular archetype. I'm going to 1 mana blowout and then just start exhausting the Scurryfoots, I think. Yeah, if one of our Scurryfoots trades into one of theirs, it's fine, because then neither of us gets to exhaust it, neither of us gets to get the 2 creatures out of it. But trading into Engine Rat pre-exhaust is pretty bad. We're hitting a great amount of mana here, so we are quite likely to get to the Otark Mammoth on turn 6. That should be pretty great. They're a black deck, though. They could just have destroy target creature. But even then, what's so great about the Mammoth is it immediately comes with the Elephant. So even if your opponent has instant removal for it, once again, it's a good trade where we're up a 3-3 in the exchange. Aether Jackets. Yep, that's going to be Exhaust a Scurryfoot. Next turn we can play Venom Sac Lagak and Loxodon Surveyor. Our opponent's in the think tank here, but again, as I said before, I'm really happy to end up trading the Scurryfoot off with anything after it has exhausted. Unless we did draft that card that lets you exhaust multiple times, then we'd probably want to try to keep it around, but we didn't end up getting that card in our deck. Took removal over that, and I'm pretty happy I did, because I have felt low on removal in all of these games, even with that pick where we took removal over that card. And speak of the devil. Again, now that Scurryfoot has adapted, just trading a 3-3 into the Death Toucher's fine. We get a 2-for-1 here, trading Scurryfoot into 2 different cards, or half of the Scurryfoot into one of their cards. So I'm just going to hold on to Flood the Engine. They're a Golgari deck. They can have some really scary late-game creatures. I mean, as we saw from the last opponent who had the big 5/5 flyer. But there's plenty of other ones they can have. Obviously, playing green, they can have the Giant Mammoth, and any of the big creatures that we're running, like the Giant Worm. Cool. Surveyor and Lagak. Okay, technically I should have surveyed pre-combat. It's hard to keep that in mind when you're playing a deck that doesn't really care about max speed. It's still technically better to play that pre-combat to up our speed off of that attack. But again, it's one of those things you really should keep in track in this format. It's pretty easy to keep it in track when you are a dedicated max speed kind of deck, like Rakdos or Orzhov or something. But when you just have some random incidental speed cards, it's really easy to forget, like I did there, that we should just be main phasing the first one. Just make it a little more likely that we have max speed to draw the card off of Surveyor whenever it dies. But again, I have like 2 cards in the whole deck that care about max speed, and it's not tremendously important to those cards. It just gives us 1 extra card draw in the late game. Let's send in the whole team here. We'll see what's going on with their 5 untapped mana. Hopefully get them to spend some mana on something here, some kind of combat trick or removal spell. But if they don't, we don't really have a better play than to just run out the Mammoth regardless. Nice, we got them to cast a spin out on our 3/3 instead of our 5/5 Mammoth. Pretty happy with that, even if they do end up having the removal for the Mammoth. We did get rid of that pretty premium removal on one of our smaller cards, so we won't have to deal with that later. Migrating Ketradon, Flood the Engine is going to be an absolute banger here. With them at 17 life, I don't mind missing out on a little bit of damage here to make just an even wider board. So I'll hit for 5, and I'm still threatening lethal next turn by attacking with all these next turn. And this way, if they have enough good blockers and removal to be stable next turn, at least we have a wider board for the rest of this game. And I am running out Scrap Compactor right now. That's so that even if I don't top deck the land next turn, I can crack it and blow up whatever I need to. Again, it's one of these awkward positions where, like, if I do top deck the land, technically it would have been better to hold on to it so they don't know that I have a removal spell coming they'll need to play around. But we have no guarantee of top decking the land, so way better to just run it out. And either way, it looks like their hand is not going to be enough to stabilize from there, and we are 4-1, guaranteed to have a positive win rate for this draft, our first draft on my personal account, so I'm pretty happy with that. 4-3 or better is basically the break-even point when drafting. It costs 1,500 gems per draft, but this way we got to collect 3 packs worth of cards through the draft, get 3 extra prize packs, and 1,400 gems. So we're down 100 gems, but up 6 packs. We're basically at least breaking even if you don't really care about your collection that much. So 4-3 or better is where I really like to be, and hopefully we can take it even farther as we head into round 6. All right, here we are on the play for game number 6. We've got the Venom Sac Lagak coming up. I can hold up Bounce Off or just play Scrap Compactor. I'm not really going to bounce off a 1-drop, so let's get the Scrap Compactor mana out of the way. Again, while it is nice to be able to conceal the information and have your opponent not play around any removal coming up, it's still almost always going to be better to just get that compactor down and get that mana investment done with. Mono blue so far from our opponent with the very fancy unlands. Those are some of the cooler ones too. We definitely have to cycle Ketradon towards hitting more mana. I can't just hold on to 6-drops here. But I suppose I'll wait till main phase 2. That way if there's some really weird flash creature I don't know about, I can bounce it off. Okay. Now I can tap out, cycle Ketradon. Alright, unfortunate draw. No land draws in the top 2. But maybe our 3rd card can be a land. So this is one of those awkward positions where missing that land drop, we basically flipped the tempo of the game. No longer does it feel like we were on the play. Now it's basically like we were on the draw and they were on the play because now we're behind mana. We might even be behind 2 mana because we still haven't hit the land, so I've got to cycle another Ketradon. They're tapped out here, so I'm just going to do it immediately. All right, thankfully we hit the land there, so we're basically just on the draw now. But only that one land drop missed. Jeskai, full blue, red, and white. Magmakin Artillerist. I don't mind just bouncing that. I gotta be pretty mana efficient right now because we don't have a lot of mana to play around with currently. Cool. It's the Engineer. Got the Silken Strength up, which is really nice against red removal spells, which they likely have. Being deeper into red here. So if they have like a Lightning Strike, it'll be really good. Our Artillerist doesn't really block anybody super well. So I'm probably just attacking all out again next turn. Ooh, Ether Hive. Alright, let's attack all out here. Ooh, tap out for the Siphon. Well, if they do block the Lagak, I will Silken Strength then, since they're tapped out. They do not block, though. So we get to drop an Ether Hive. I wasn't going to Silken Strength the Lagak if they blocked with Artillerist, because the trade's already okay. And if I try to Silken Strength and they respond with a Lightning Strike, that's really, really far against me. So it's worth having like a slightly worse trade on board to not get completely blown out if they have that specific instant speed removal, which they did have the mana untapped for before they activated the Ether Siphon. Flood the engine, the Ether Hive, so we don't get any 1/1s, that's fine. Still jamming in on board. Now they only have a single red up. Okay, they're not even going to hold the blocker up, never mind. Can it still attack and block? Tap it, it loses its abilities, doesn't untap. No, it can't. I can untap it, but it doesn't have the ability to be crude. If I untap a vehicle that has, or sorry, if I untap a creature that has been Flood the Engine, I can start attacking with it if it has Vigilance, or I can get one more attack in with it. So Silken Strength's pretty good against Flood the Engine, but doesn't help when it's on a vehicle. This is a permanent. Oh no, it's a creature vehicle. Never mind, can't pick up Flood the Engine. It just says permanent with mana value 1 for the cost reduction, but it means creature vehicle. Okay. I think we're just playing Loxodon Surveyor then. I don't have the mana to exhaust anybody. I did it again. We were supposed to play Surveyor pre-combat and be at 2 speed instead of 1. Hopefully we get that under control by the Arena Direct. Start sequencing our cards right. It feels so unnatural to be playing things in main phase 1 like that. Because you just always want to have that Silken Strength up just in case, or any other instant in your hand. Plus, you're making it so your opponent doesn't have full information when they're deciding your blocks. But it's like, well, they're pretty much tapped out. We're almost definitely not needing to use Silken Strength, and we could guaranteed get another speed. Oh no. Captain Howler is terrifying. Every time they cycle a card, something gets +2/+0, and whenever that card hits us, they draw a card. That is really scary. Yeah, kind of need another land, Arena. Need a 5th mana to get through that Captain Howler. I can still attack with the Venom Sac Lagak, the Loxodon Surveyor. Yeah, Silken Strength does a lot of work here to allow me to still attack in, unless they have a good trick of their own. I do get blown out by Lightning Strike still. but we're pretty confident they didn't have it earlier because they just went for Ether Siphon instead of anything else. I feel like they would have blown up something by now. Is it worth the risk? Getting blown out by the Lightning Strike to go for the Silken Strength? I kind of feel like it is because I really don't have any other line right now. Right, because this is Ward 2. I can't flood it. I could just roadside blow out the Artillerist and pass. Oh, wow. Oh, that's so okay. I'm not even going to cast anything then. It's not even necessary. I'm already trading into the only creature that really matters here. Not going to cast anything unless they spend some mana and try to do something themselves. Cycle, Fuel the Flames to buff Artillerist. Okay, fancy, fancy. Trigger, draw. 1 red mana. There probably is like one uncommon 1 red mana trick, but I'm not going to play around that because it's not the common removal like Lightning Strike. All right, that went really well. Love to see that. Their trick just did not line up well into ours of just cycling the card there. It's that big reach shark. Bounce that and then flood it next turn. Sure. Even have a Scurryfoot to play. Okay. They do have the counterspell for that. But here's the blowout on the shark. Put them to 2. They replay the shark. If we top deck a land, I think we're probably pretty locked in for lethal. So we can flood the engine 2 blockers. Another market back walker. That was the card that 2-for-1'd us in our 1 loss here. Unfortunately, that's a tap land, so I don't get to flood both of these. So I guess we're going to let them draw a card. Letting them draw a card is better than letting them kill one of our creatures. So put them to 1 and they draw a card. And I will play Night Market tapped so that we have access to Scrap Compactor for 6 mana next turn, or we can double removal with the 3 mana Compactor ability and the 3 mana Flood the Engine. Cool. Doing a lot of cycling over there. There's that one card that like reanimates every vehicle in their grave. That'd be scary. Okay, they only have the 2. But still, I'm trying to think of things that could win the game from here with our opponent at 1 life. I mean, I guess the most likely would be like 2 really cheap removal spells. But they do not find that, and we are 5-1. We are guaranteed to be in the money out of this draft, leaving with more gems than we spent to enter. Feels great wherever things go from here, but we still got some more games to play, so let's just hop right back in there for round number 7. All right, here we are for game 7 on the draw. We got Scurryfoot, Ghost Surveyors later. Again, what's so great about Scurryfoot is it's almost like a whole curve in and of itself. It's your 1-drop and your 4-drop. So we got plenty of stuff to toy around with here. We are going to be getting beat down, though, since we are on the draw. We're just getting these attacks in early with Gilded Goda. Path Cruisers are crew 5, luckily. Looks like they did not go full 5-color. Well, no, they did. Green, white, red, and blue. So they just need black to exhaust this and make it a 8/7 creature for the rest of the game. All right, that's kind of scary. That's a pretty solid reward for making it to 5 different colors of mana. Plus, it helps you get there. Nimble Thopterist has arrived. We've got the 2/2 flyer to block the 1/1 flyer. But they're just going to crew up the Goda for the treasure token to activate the 8/5 Path Cruiser. Okay. So we need to flood the engine of the Path Cruiser. So let's... I could take one Path Cruiser hit first, make sure that they just waste their whole turn activating that. And then I just exhaust a Scurryfoot here to hold everybody else off. That seems fine. Ooh, instead, they play a different card, so they don't have the black mana for Path Cruiser. Whenever they attack, deal 1 to each opponent. Maximum speed adds to their damage. Okay. Well, this turn has gone way better for me than if I just flood the engine of the Path Cruiser. Because now I'll actually have some amount of blocks here. I mean, I'll block and kill both those happily. Sure, I'll block and kill that happily. I don't know what's going on with my opponent right now in the emotes. But I guess they're excited at least. Flood, Far Fortune, and I still have a Flood left over for the Path Cruiser if they assemble the black mana again. Crew on blocks here to hold the 3/3 off, sure. Okay, you're getting disabled. Oh wait, no, I can just click mute. Boom! Alright, Pothole Mole has arrived. There's the black source for the Path Cruiser. It's an Ether Hive. We can just drop a Mammoth and have a really wide board of blocks. Then next turn I can go Ether Hive plus Flood the Engine in the same turn. Just gonna pass here. Drawn to a Scrap Compactor. This ability's instant speed, right? It is. I could hope that their best play is just activating Path Cruiser and they don't have instant speed removal in hand, but with 5 cards in hand, I feel like I have to play around the instant speed removal and not just, like, flood the engine and try to Mammoth in. I mean, I'm just gonna flood the engine and Aether Hive either way, right? Guess I might as well go for it. Right, since the Path Cruiser is tapped. They're not going to have good attacks anyway. Yeah, I mean, that was to be expected. But we got to go for it there, because again, they're not going to have crackbacks regardless, and it's significantly better if they don't have the instant speed removal. Don't really lose anything by tapping those creatures for the saddle. There's a scrap compactor. Can blow up the Scurryfoot here. It's pretty solid. Yep, it's pretty good. Oh, and no lands drawn from them still? Alright, so they're quite a bit ahead on cards here. They stopped at 5 mana even after picking up a land from Path Cruiser, which means they're way ahead on spells to cast. Guess we are ahead on board to start slamming in with 3/3s on the ground. Sure. Suppose I could have pre-commented the scrap compactor to make their blocks worse, but I think I have to hold it for a much bigger threat anyway. They're a 5-color deck here, which means they probably have plenty more bombs to cast soon enough. I think I'm really using this to try to 2-for-1 the little 2/2s and 2/3s. Flood the engine, the Aether Hive. Yep. Saddle the Goda. Okay, at this point I might need to just kill the Goda. Because now it gets a good attack in this turn. It gets the treasure, which is pretty important. Right. Really not what I need right now, but we get a full swing for 5. Now whenever Surveyor dies, we can draw a card off of it. Wreck Remover, 3/4. And a Midnight Mangler. Those are some very filler cards for 5-color. I was expecting to get absolutely blown out by now, but running like really, really filler stuff. Which again is it's just surprising from a 5-color deck, considering they could take anything in the whole draft pod. They've got the mana for it. Surveyor, Slick Imitator. Those will matter if they get to max speed. Even if I don't attack at all, they can chump attack the board in to get to max speed, so I think we're still jamming. Not with the 6/6, because that just trades down into a 3/4, and that's pretty bad. We'll just get the flyer in. Alright, we're definitely drawing better in the top deck war here. They're hitting mana rocks and cheap vehicles, and we hit a couple 6/6s. Got no reach creatures here, so we're just chipping in for 2 a turn for eternity. They have enough creatures on board to kill both of the Ketradons if we attack in with them, so just chip for 2 a turn, and Wait to see if they do top deck some insane multicolored bomb rare. But if they don't, we are very, very slowly winning right now. The issue is that it is very, very slowly, which is giving them time to hit whatever they are playing 5-color to put in their deck. Bounce off is probably actually good enough to send the Ketrodons in and win one of the combats. Right, because their best block on the other Ketrodon is going to have us kill multiple of their creatures, even if the Ketrodon dies. So we only need to be able to bounce off on one of the combats, right? Because they could have like put a 4-2 and a 3-3, or a 4-2, a 1-3, and a 1-1 in front of the other Ketrodon, but it's like, sure, then I'm killing at least 2 of their cards with that one anyway. And that remains the same this turn. We kill at least 2 of their cards with Ketrodon, no matter how they block, for the double block, if they are trying to kill a Ketrodon here. Sure. Looks good to me. They're down to 1 life now. And they just didn't find any of their gas in the late game. That was a really threatening, really powerful start from our opponent, but I guess they found all of their good draws in the early game there and started hitting just all the filler in the end. Again, more mana fixing when they already had all the mana, multiple dual lands in a row for even more mana fixing, but it's like, yeah, these are just lands, let's just flood at this point. And again, just the early game filler defendery cards like Midnight Mangler, Wreck Remover, just 3 mana, 3/3, no abilities, stuff like that. So yeah, they were not finding their big bombs like Demonic Junker, so pretty lucky game for us, just that we didn't see anything explosive from our opponent. I do not imagine that it's really possible to end up in a 5-color deck and not have some more gas than what we saw that game, so probably hiding away from us there. And we are 6-1 heading into game number 8. All right, here we are for game number 8, which could be the final battle. We're 6-1 right now, 1 win away from a full 7-win maximum prize out run. That said, we do have 2 losses in the chamber, so if we lose this game, then we're still playing another game after this, so it's not guaranteed to be our last game of Magic today. Saddle 2, alright, that works really well in conjunction with the Loxodon Surveyor here, because now we get to saddle it up so it has enough toughness to attack into the diver, and that'll help us raise our speed, because they're not going to have a good block here. It's pretty nice. I think that's the first time we've saddled the Lagak today. But not bad at all. Might even draw a removal spell from them? No, they're just cycling a Ketrodon. Fair. We've got a pretty self-explanatory opening hand here. Both colors of mana, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop. That's what you want in the early game, so we kept the hand. Unfortunately, we're just drawing mana right now, so not finding anything to top the curve off with, but technically once we get really high on mana, we can exhaust the Hazard of the Dunes, and that'll be something. We'll keep that pressure going here, saddle up the Lagak again, and send in the team. 3/3 trades into the 3/2, but that's pretty fine, because we can exile it to draw a card from our grave later, as long as we do 1 more damage to our opponent at some point this game. Ooh, Cryptcaller Chariot is the card that we passed up on as our pack 1 pick 1. So we'll see if that comes back to haunt us here, if our opponent has a bunch of cyclers to go with it to get a bunch of zombies. It is crew 2, but the Dynamite Diver is able to crew it because of its first ability. So we do need to keep that in mind and not attack with Hazard of the Dunes. I can definitely still attack with the Venom Sac Lagak, though, because it has the Death Touch to just kill the Chariot if they crew and block with it. So this will get us to max speed to exile our elephant from the grave and draw a card, which is pretty nice. We are out of gas here. Ran out all our creatures nice and early. I'll pretend I have some kind of blue instant here. No reason not to. 4/5 reach. Alright. Lagax still gets to get in. Oh, that also works insane with the Chariot. I just realized they can discard a card, draw a card every turn, which means get a tap 2/2 zombie every turn. Yeah, we might get deleted by the pack one, pick one rare that we passed up on here. That is a really good combo with the Gunner, so we gotta find one of our Flood the Engines for the Chariot or the Gunner. Aether Hive and Otark Mammoth. Those are strong cards, but they're not going to get through the Chariot Gunner combo here. Still got my Lagak attacks. And then I'll have a Hazard attack next turn. I kind of want to just Mammoth here. But there is an argument for Aether Hiving instead, because I know I'm exhausting Hazard of the Dunes next turn. I just feel like Mammoth is way too big to pass up on right now. It's kind of our last turn we get to attack with Venom Sac Lagak, sadly. Man, the 0 mana make a 2/2 zombie every turn. That's going to be a lot to break through here. But we have some beef on our board to work towards that. Could be another game where our lack of removal haunts us a bit. Because if we just had one Flood the Engine in response to that Chariot, this game would be kind of a landslide in our favor right now. Optimizer is the draw. Sure, there's the instant speed removal. Got it. Go to 5. Another zombie. They go back up to 6 off their tap land. Land off the top for us. Eat that for free. This might be enough attackers we can actually attack with the 3/3 here, because the 7/7 trample might be enough damage to like force a Gunner or a Chariot over there, which keeps them off of the 3/3. Screws for only 2 though, right? So they have a 4/5, a 5/5, a 2/2, and a 1/1 blocker. So No, even if this is enough damage, they still get to eat this without losing your creature. It just like guarantees that a gunner or a chariot has to die. Honestly, though, probably worth it. Well, I don't know, because Hazard is probably breaking through a bunch of the board here, too. Lagak kills at least one of the big creatures or two of the small ones. I really don't know here. I suppose I probably should have... Okay, never mind. I was gonna say that if I was not going to attack with the 3-2 and the 3-3, it might have been better to saddle the Lagak with the Omnivore instead of the Optimizer, because by playing the Optimizer, I'm giving my opponent a target for their Dynamite Diver, where they could like chump the Lagak and shoot the Optimizer for one. But we're gonna get some kills here, it looks like. Clear out some of this board. Hopefully stop this 2-card combo. If they've got the Death Touch Indestructible trick, it's pretty over. Ooh. Wow. 2 +1/+1 counters indestructible? That's even worse. Alright. Agonosaur Rex got hands. And I guess we're super dead here. They're at 6 life, so it's going to take a while before they can start attacking us, but we can't break through their board state now. We have 3 3-power creatures. They have 4 blockers, which is going to be 2 2/2s, a 4/5, and a 7/7. So, unless we draw really, really well, we're not breaking through this board state. Plus, they're getting another 2/2 every single turn from their Splinter Twin combo, Thunderhead Gunner, and Crypt Caller Chariot. They only have 1 reach creature, so there we go. Some of our flyers could also be our outs here. If I can hit cards like Skystreak Engineer, and then we find a bounce spell or a Flood the Engine style spell to use on the Thunderhead Gunner, we might be able to get a kill in just a couple swings. We've drawn 0 removal all game, so there is a decent chunk left in the deck to try to get this flying damage in. We have both of our Flood the Engines, we have our Scrap Compactor, as well as all of our bounce spells, the Bounce Off and the Roadside Blowout. But again, we're going to need to hit them fast, because the zombie army is going to start coming in soon. Soon TM. Pending. Another zombie off of the vehicle. Might as well slam down that 3rd rare on us. Debris Beetle has arrived. Getting them to an even healthier life total and giving them a 6/6 trample. Well, we draw any exhaust cards, and I've got the double Ether Hive, which can do a lot of work towards trying to prolong the game here, maybe playing on the mill victory. We don't have anything to mill them with, but They're down to 12 cards. We have 22, so they mill out 10 turns before us. 9 turns before us now. Or, sorry, 11 turns before us now that they've activated Gunner again. Alright, show me another combat trick here. I think I actually need to lose an Ether Hive. So that I just lose one 3/5 here instead of 2 creatures. Oops. Unless they have the trick, in which case all of our blocks suck anyway. Cool. I guess I could have like tried to block with the entire board then. That would have played okay. But that would have been miserable if they had the Death Touch Indestructible trick. So fashionably late this game, Scrap Compactor. Fashionably late. Tempted to hit the Gunner. Because they don't have to crew the Gunner. But I mean, this thing's a 7/7, and all their cycling cards make more creatures too. They've got 10 cards left. Oh, yep, that'll do it. Well, I think we pretty clearly just got out power leveled here. One of the things that we said in deck building. I think this deck is pretty decent, but falls among the average level because we've got a little bit of filler in here. And importantly, in the modern drafting era, no bombs, which is quite a bit lower than the average deck. Our opponent, no such issues here, and we get Pyrewood Gearholt for lethal. That is going to be 6 and 2 heading into the final battle. Win or lose, this will be our last game of Magic. All right, here we are for the final battle. Unfortunately, on the draw on this one, but the hand is really nice. Scurryfoot into Engineer into Surveyor. Start our engines and get that flying point of damage in. Yikes. Yikes, yikes, yikes. This card is super, super scary. Once you get 3 other creatures on board, then you get to keep activating this and putting a permanent +1/+1 counter on it. Yeah, this is one of those snowball-y kind of cards that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger turn over turn. Gets in for flying damage as well. Pretty scared. Luckily, we did top deck the Flood the Engine here. It's unfortunate. I'm probably going to have to use that on a 1-drop. That's not the greatest deal ever, but still likely to be worth it here so we don't just get steamrolled by the Glide Car. Cloudspire Coordinator. They get a Scry 2. Every vehicle or mount they play, they can make a 1/1 pilot as well in the same turn. So that's another pretty sketchy card for us. Don't think it is quite along the power level of the Glide Car, though, so I think we're flooding the Glide Car next turn. Another untapped land is good for the future. Six power on their board here if I send in. I don't love either trade with Coordinator, but I think I have to threaten to block here. Prefer to trade off the Engineer because I've got just one turn till I'm activating Scurryfoot. But they don't even send in the Coordinator, so don't have to worry about that. Oh. Untapped land is great here. Now I get to adapt Scurryfoot and go land, adapt Engineer next turn so that I actually do have a blocker big enough for the Synergist. But Synergist has put me to 9 this turn, the bare minimum. Might even be hitting me harder if they have another vehicle in their hand. Mount lets them get a 1/1 off Coordinator, but I don't think the 1/1's an artifact, so just 3 damage here. Yeah, the pilot is not an artifact. Cool. So I mean, I have to activate Engineer now, and I want to do it while they're tapped out so they can't Lightning Strike the Engineer if they top deck that to shoot it for 3. The Synergist is still going to be a massive issue. Oh, because I was going to say if they can draw into 2 more artifacts, then the Engineer doesn't even block it, and they had 2 more artifacts off of just 1 spell with Broadcast Rambler. Brutal. Kind of locked in for death next turn because we're down to 4 against a board this wide. I don't know if we're going to have enough blockers, but whatever I'm playing, it's going to be 2 blockers here, so we'll go for the Scurryfoot 2 blockers. Cross our fingers and pray at this point. I will say this, as awkward as it is to not have the removal for Synergist, things would be worse for us if we didn't flood the engine the glide car, because they have way more than enough creatures to keep getting that thing going. Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably dead on board. But we'll see. The rough part is I can retroactively make the Synergist too small to kill Engineer, but not until it's already killed the Engineer, right? Like, I can kill some artifacts here, in theory, to make it have 4 power by killing the Rambler, but the Engineer's already dead, so that doesn't change anything. I can't double block Rambler, I have to chump it. Because if I double block Rambler, I take exact lethal, so I have to chump Rambler and kill the Gilded Goda, then take 2. Is there any way I can have a better block taking 1 more damage here? Because I can afford to take 1 more and not be dead. No, there's not. Yeah, that's our best block here. All right. Oh, they just have Lightning Strike too. Or any combat trick, sure. Bummer. Just an excellent opening hand from our opponent. There's not much else to say than that. 1 more removal spell. Maybe we have a chance there as well. Showing off one of the biggest weaknesses of our deck that we've seen consistently. Both of our last 2 losses, potentially, due to a lack of removal. But overall, 6-3 is still a great run for this deck, and it took some really busted plays from our opponents to take us down there. Just the full Boros curve out and the Rakdos Splinter Twin combo. to take us out of contention. But yeah, that was the weakest aspect of this deck. I feel like that's going to be a big problem with blue-green in general. We had the 2 Flood the Engines, but we didn't get any of the green removal spells or any other removal than that, so we had to even run a Scrap Compactor, which actually pulled its weight today, considering how low we were on removal, but we certainly could have used more removal instead of like the Silken Strength combat trick that was fine, but wasn't really good targeted removal. The bounce spells did help as well, filling that role a little bit. And I think it actually would have been really nice in that last game of Magic there, or the game of Magic against the 2-card combo making all the zombies, but we just didn't draw them in either of those games either, so it is what it is. Can't control that part. Yeah, overall, pretty impressed by the exhaust creatures in general. The Ether Hive working pretty well with them as well, and just green beef in general was a great part of this deck. I really, really like green. Just for raw power level of these cards, the massive creatures at the top end. Just a really solid deck overall, without even having any bomb power and a pretty low, pretty mediocre amount of removal. Even with that, we get a 6-win run, which is pretty great. Lots of value today. But that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you enjoyed this video and are interested in seeing some more like it, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.